my name's Sarah. I'm the HE Program Leader for Animal Management, and I'm going to tell you how to take your teaching out of this world with the help of MIE and the Innovate team. So this is me before teaching. I spent 10 years in industry working with zoos and international NGOs around the world. That's me on the left with Raja the Komodo dragon at London Zoo, where I was part of the herpetology team for many years. And on the right there is Layla, who is a sun bear cub that was orphaned, who I reared at the Animals Asia Vietnam Bear Rescue Centre, which I managed, and we rescued bears from the bile trade. So teaching, as you can probably tell, wasn't my first love, and I think it's fair to say I often see things through a different lens, but I wanted to bring that passion and that dimension to my teaching. When I first started teaching, there's a few common issues I kept finding when teaching animal management. It was impossible to visit certain collections, especially those overseas. Some students can't afford to send trips, even those close by. As Grimsby is quite an economically deprived area, we need to be mindful of the fact that even HE students with student loans aren't always in a position to be able to attend trips if they're over a certain cost. And it's also difficult to illustrate the subject through standard delivery alone. So I looked at ways to get around this, and this was when the Innovate team and my now CM introduced me to Skype in the classroom. Having worked overseas for many years, I was familiar with using Skype for interviews and staying in touch, but had no idea about Microsoft's Classroom initiative and its potential applications. So this is what the Skype in the Classroom page looks like. And when looking through the Skype in the Classroom website, you'll see that there's lots of possibilities for your subject area. So for mine particularly, it was virtual field trips and guest speakers that it opened up quite a lot of options for. And while looking through the internet, sort of hunting for more of these types of online resources, because I thought, well, if Skype's out there, then there's got to be something else that other people are doing too to kind of broaden the options for us. I then discovered another amazing free resource called Skype a Scientist, an initiative that matches your class with scientists from all areas of the field, or you can request a match with a specific scientist from their extensive list. It was through Skype a Scientist I connected with Verena Schuff, a leading coral biologist that was pioneering cultivating supercorals, temperature-resistant corals and algae that were combined together in order to disperse over areas of reef that had been decimated by ocean acidification to save our coral reefs from being wiped out. She did an amazing Q&A from Perth, Australia, and the students were given prep sessions on the subject and asked to prepare questions for Verena. The session was so engaging that it ran over our scheduled hour, and Verena kindly agreed to give up an extra half hour of a valuable time for additional questions. Feedback was overwhelmingly positive, and students were left very enthused about subjects such as corals that, although underpin the ecosystems of our oceans, could have potentially been quite one-dimensional for some learners who don't have as much interest in marine biology as others. Next up, we had a behind-the-scenes tour of the Sea Turtle Rehabilitation Centre at the South Carolina Aquarium. The education lead, Susan, took us on a full tour of the facilities that the visiting public don't even get to see, so we were very lucky to see things that were very much behind the scenes. We met some of the patients and rounded it off with a Q&A. Again, students were prepped beforehand, and this was done mostly through the South Carolina website, which is incredibly informative. Not only did it contain educational resources, but it also had patient profiles of all of the sea turtles that we were going to see in our tour. This gave students background on some of the injuries that they had come in with and some of the treatment plans along with their names in order to give them a foundation of which to ask sensible questions that were relevant to what we were seeing and doing. Inspired by the success of our Skypes and its impact on my learners, I contacted old colleagues doing amazing things in far-flung corners of the world and asked if they would donate their time. This is the response from a level 5 student after speaking to Joost Philippa, an old friend and colleague at the Orangutan Rescue Centre in Borneo, run by International Animal Rescue. Joost was able to not only answer veterinary-related questions, but also gave amazing insight into higher primate behaviour from the many amazing projects he has been part of, such as Gorilla Doctors in Rwanda. This was a way of engaging students through not only Skype in the Classroom and Skype a Scientist, but also through alternative means, still using virtual learning, but tapping into resources such as old colleagues and friends. A more recent and incredibly popular guest we had was Dr. Alex Hastings, Fitzpatrick Chair of Paleontology at the Minnesota Natural History Museum. He also discovered a number of species that are now extinct, including Titanoboa, the largest snake that ever lived, and a couple of extinct crocodilian species. He gave us a mini lesson in taxonomy and binomial nomenclature by talking about how he named a couple of the animals he discovered after Lord of the Rings characters, which was insightful and engaging and charismatic for our learners to learn about what can be a difficult and somewhat dry subject, which is the classification and naming of species. Alex also helped give a reptilian perspective on climate change and evolution, which tied in perfectly with our module on evolution adaptations, and overall was an overwhelming success. Feedback from students on this was incredibly positive. Some students brought in reams of questions, and these were students that didn't normally speak much or ask many questions in class. One particular student who had a keen interest in dinosaurs was beaming from ear to ear from the minute he walked in the classroom. So subjectively, you could get the positivity of the feedback before even speaking to students or gathering feedback online. We then furthered our journey into animal adaptations by virtually visiting the Buffalo Bill Centre of the West. This is a museum based on the edge of Yellowstone National Park. The education officer here took us on a tour of the tiered landscape of Yellowstone and how its inhabitants have evolved and adapted to fit its changing environment. This was illustrated beautifully through the many exhibitions at the museum, where we could actually see the morphology of certain skulls, look at different physical adaptations of animals and relate them to the landscape of which the animals inhabited. Finally, this academic year we had something very special. Microsoft launched the STEM initiative in collaboration with NASA, which allowed students across the globe to submit their questions to be posed to Jessica Meir, an astronaut and marine biologist aboard the International Space Station. The student here is one of my level 4 students whose question was picked from the thousands of global entries. Her question related to climate change and could it be seen from space. Jessica answered this while aboard the International Space Station, as you can see here. We organised a live viewing party, which we held at the Corner Lounge and invited HE and FE Animal students and made this into a really nice event for the students to participate in. Jessica answered the question beautifully and illustrated it via photographs that she had taken from the space station of the changing state of our ice caps. I was really shocked and surprised when one of mine was chosen. It is really exciting and really special. This was the reaction from the level 4 student whose question was picked for NASA. I think it's clear that situations like this can be highly motivating for learners. We should not underestimate the impact that they can have in the classroom. Also handing them over the reins at some point, giving them the choice of who they want to speak in class through virtual sites such as Skype in the classroom and what virtual field trips that they would like to go on, offers an extra dimension to it. Giving choice to the students is intrinsic to good teaching and good welfare, and this is something as animal management students they learn about animals. Another form of technology we've piloted on the foundation degree is Class VR. The applications of this range widely across faculties. I'll talk through a few in a moment that we have used on our course, but I'm sure for everybody across all subject areas, there's plenty of things where this can come in useful and add a nice novel way of learning and some differentiation into class. It has allowed us to look at adaptations of animals in their natural habitats without even leaving the classroom and has added an extra dimension to standard classroom-based learning. It's also allowed us to examine the morphology of skulls and the structure of cells, etc. in 3D using the AR cubes that come with the headsets. These are augmented reality cubes that can be programmed so that while the learners are looking through the headsets, it looks like they are holding the object in their hand. They can turn it over and look at it from all aspects and dimensions, which makes it easy to facilitate learning when we can't get in the labs to do practicals. Through this unique and unusual situation of distance teaching that we've all found ourselves in, it was important to continue to find ways to enhance learning in the manner that we've been doing in the classroom all term. And although such formats like Class VR weren't really compatible with distance learning, there was many things we could still do, like virtual tours and trips that many facilities who could also no longer open their doors to the public were offering out to classes and to people sat at home who were teaching their children from home. These were things such as virtual visits around Chester Zoo and the South Carolina Aquarium, which we'd already visited on a Skype classroom visit and had a good relationship with. So this fit perfectly with modules such as animal collections, which we were no longer able to run trips for. Last year, for example, we went to Twycross and would have facilitated some of the in-classroom learning on that trip. However, we were able to emulate that online via things such as the Chester Zoo Virtual Zoo Day. Tasks to assess learning were then structured around this accordingly on Canvas. As I'm sure many of you found, some learners have struggled with the distance learning transition, while others have absolutely thrived. And it goes the same for staff too. I know I'm certainly missing the social element of actually going into the university building. These slides show peaks in interaction with Canvas when we have used virtual tours and the conference facility, which shows that those that have struggled to engage before, or maybe attendance has been poor for varying reasons such as mental health or anxiety, have been able to engage in a new way which hasn't impaired them from engaging on a daily basis and impacting their attendance. This final slide is taken from Canvas Analytics and it shows one such student. So she has struggled with engagement and attendance because of mental health reasons, and she has really not engaged with Canvas very well previously either. So this shows when we actually had a conference call. This is her Canvas Analytics from her page that show that she finally engaged. She's one of those students that I was mentioning has kind of maybe thrived a little bit more from being able to engage solely online with distance learning. So it's a good example of what initially seemed like a negative situation can be turned into a huge positive for some learners. And that's why I wanted to kind of end it on that note, because I felt like it was a nice kind of thing to leave it with. But hopefully that's helped you guys with some ideas of maybe things that you can incorporate into your own learning, whether it's distance or when we're back in college or back in the uni building. But thanks for listening and stay safe. Bye.